secret is I just smile and say, live for today. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the sun came up and I gotta say, see it in a whole new way. I'm sitting on top of the world, on top of the world, on top of the world. I'm sitting on top of the world.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Leaders and Learners, brought to you by Sandon Shores. Content is Queen. We are bringing to you today an amazing leader who is going to share with us some things that many of us have never really been exposed to. And if you have, hopefully we'll have a few elements of it that you weren't quite aware of. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Mr. Terrence Evans of Terreva Investments, and let him take it away and talk to us a little bit about who he is and what he does.
Well, thank you, Tonya. My name is Terrence, of course. I have been a practicing engineer for almost 25 years. I'm originally from the Atlanta area. Now I've been here in the Los Angeles area for the last, like I said, almost 25 years. I've worked for a variety of aerospace, electronics manufacturers. I've been mostly in a test engineering role where I would go and I would, if the company has a product that they're trying to build and sell, I would test that component or some piece of that component. So that's basically my 9 to 5 in a nutshell. And then over the last few years, I've developed yet another skill, and I've started a business called Terreva Investments, and its sole purpose is to buy and sell and disposition distressed mortgage note assets. So now I'm at a point where I'm trying to build this business up, and to the point where I don't need my 9 to 5 anymore, as well as do bigger and better things within the space. I'm more of what you would call a mom and pop type of shop. That means I just buy onesie twosies, cherry pick assets from across the nation. But eventually I want to go from that onesie twosie type of action to, bigger collection of assets, what we call pools. And then also in addition to that, create an investment fund so that I can go after these larger pools and assets. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
How did you go from engineering to real estate? It doesn't seem like an easy crossover. So where did that even come from?
So quiet as it's kept, I'm not sure if I told you this already, but several years ago, actually around the time of the crash 12 years ago, 11, 12 years ago, I actually got a real estate agent license. And I think I've always had some amount of interest in that. I think I didn't really have, interesting enough, it really wasn't so much the sales part, because I think that my sales skills could probably be improved upon. But I think I was just more enthralled by, you have like these, hundreds of thousands of dollar assets that you can make commission on, and the money really drew me. Let's just put it like that. And then, so along with that, I would say I'm a numbers person, and naturally, since I'm an engineer, there are some aspects to real estate, and then of course later on real estate investing that drew me in, because all it is just numbers. You don't have to kind of be that enthralled by the color of paint on a wall or the furniture within a house. You just have to it's all about the numbers and whether this deal makes sense or not. So I think that's kind of how that started. Now, my most recent foray into real estate investing just came about because, well, I needed money. I was coming off of a divorce, and I was starting a new job that wasn't paying me as much as I had at my previous position, and I just needed some supplemental income, another stream of income. And
Hey, I got to ask you this though.
okay.
From the outside looking in, most people think if you're an engineer, you're making wads of cash. So help me understand how you needed another line of, because most people think, you go to school, you become an engineer, which is hard as I don't know what, and you're going to be rich. So I've never heard an engineer say, I need more money. Are you just someone that isn't okay just being okay and always wants more? Because there are those people that are not just okay being okay. So is it that engineering wasn't what you thought it would be? Or is it just an opportunity for you to want more, build more?
Okay, that's a good question. It's probably a little bit of everything. It probably wasn't just money, even though I state that as probably my first reason, but at times the roles that I've had have gotten repetitive and monotonous. And that's probably more on me than the job itself, because I could have chosen to I guess think more outside the box and consider, okay, there are some other jobs out there that I could be trying to go after, but because at times I would get kind of stuck in certain ruts, and it wasn't as appealing to me as I thought it was going to be. Now, going back to your first assertion about how you thought that all engineers would be rich, you just would be surprised.
Educate us, because there are things that we just don't know.
Yes, if not, that's okay.
Not all companies pay the same amount for the equivalent work.
Okay.
So I'll probably just leave it at that. And it's just really kind of it's probably a function of how that role fits within their company, their respective company. For instance, and I guess I'll just come out and say it. Like, for instance, I would work for aerospace companies, and it was very important for them to make sure that their product, that whatever that they're making. Well, first of all, if you're working for an aerospace company, their products have to work, because if their products don't work, either somebody dies or basically $100-200 million worth of stuff goes up in smoke, and it doesn't it is not of any use to anybody. Right. So it's really important for them to know, okay, will my stuff work? Does my stuff work now, and will it work 10-15 years from now? So consequently, it really was important for them to pay their test engineers well. If you go work for somebody else who doesn't make anything, that basically they get whatever, like their design built in offshore in China or Russia or someplace, and then they bring it back to shore to distribute to the customers. It's a little bit different dynamic. They don't really pay and what they will call those people is quality assurance. Mm-hmm. So for them, quality assurance people are a dime a dozen. And they don't place any extra importance on your experience or where you went to school or any of that. So consequently, they don't pay as much.
So explain.
And that's just one example. I mean, I could kind of talk about how, you know, it compared to, let's say, 20, 30, 40 years ago, engineers are viewed more as a commodity than they used to be. They're not as special. That's why you always have this you know, cyclical thing going on with hiring and laying off. It's just, and that's probably just, you know, consistent with American business in general. But yeah, I mean, it's not people. I always hear the old stories from the older engineers, some of whom are retired now, about how good things used to be. And again, that's probably indicative of the state of American business, you know, in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but less so now. Everything's just about, okay, am I going to hit this, you know, my next quarter's profit?
Yeah.
And because that affects the stock price. So that's how it is.
You find yourself in places where there aren't a lot of faces like you?
All the time. I mean, it's been like that since I've gone to school.
What is your method of kind of rising in the ranks and improving your value in these companies? Because that's what it comes down to, right? Every leader, decision maker, they want to know, what can you do for me? And more so as a face of color. What more can you do for me?
Right.
What are your steps to bringing leadership along with your work ethic and your ability to carry out your duties?
I'm not sure if I have any special sauce there. I believe that what I've thought was good enough to be able to progress through a company was just to kind of, you know, be that steady rock to do your work, and you know, things will take care of itself. That might not have always been that might not have been the best approach. Let's just put it like that. And this is not just a thing about you know, what my peers what they look like. This is more of just a general people thing. If you are a bit more political, if you do things that are that will get you additional visibility, then that will help you along the way as well, in addition to doing your work. But if you are that tree, that proverbial tree in the forest, and no one actually hears you fall, then they don't know about you.
Yes.
And
So
many times in my career, I've been comfortable just being a lab rat and just don't bother me. I'm in the lab. Don't just if you need something, tell me what that is. But outside of that realm, no, don't bother me. And you know, that has at times probably been to my detriment.
So what are some of those things that you've done to be able to give yourself a little more visibility?
I changed jobs.
Yes. Listen,
So,
with what you're doing now, building this new business, how much of what you've been doing as an engineer has been able to help you with that?
So in general, I think that, so my current job now is a lot more customer facing. So I think that was thing number one. Like prior up to this point, the jobs that I have were not as customer facing. I mean, yeah, sure, the customer will come in from time to time and especially if there was an issue with their product, you know, I would interface with them if they came in to check on their product, like doing like a data review or something like that. But no, this time, you know, my daily interaction is with external customers. So I get a chance to see a lot of the things that they're doing. I get to hear I get to hear what they are trying to do, and then it's my job to try to figure out how I can best help them. So that within itself has been a good transferable skill to what I'm doing now, because that's effectively what I'm going to be doing, at least a certain segment of what I'm going to be doing with Terreva Investments, which is going to a potential investor and saying, hey, look, what type of returns are you getting in the market? Because typically people they are in the stock market and that's about it, you know. And you know, sometimes some just normal real estate, that too. But you know, typically what they all know, is the stock market. So what kind of returns are you getting? Oh, you're getting that? All right, well, what if I were to tell you that you can get consistent double-digit returns in your investments? You know, so that kind of stuff right there, in terms of asking what I can do for the potential investor, has been the most learned skill, I would say, over the last few years. Now, in general, like I said before at the outset, you know, I'm a numbers person. I'm in Excel all day, every day. And I do a lot of my analysis of my note investing in Excel. So that's also that's probably one of the more tangible skill sets that I can transfer from one to the other.
Like that. Now, currently, how many people are you able to work with at one time to bring them along on this journey with you growing the business? Like, how many people can you help at one time? Like, do you have a number where you max out, like, you know what, I can only give these amount of people a certain quality of my time, of my education? Or are you just like, I'm that good where I can spread my knowledge all over the place, come one, come all?
So I'm not sure if I really have a specific number in place, but what I can tell you is that I've gotten some practice at this over the last year and a half. So over the last year and a half, I've started a meetup group called the Monthly Brunches of Notes, and the premise of that was to basically try to educate people in note investing, limited education into note investing. So we would meet at a restaurant, at least before the coronavirus hit. We would meet in a restaurant, and I would normally have like up to 10 people joining me at the restaurant. And we would talk about some aspect of note investing. So if I could draw upon that, maybe 10 people, but it really kind of depends. It really depends on where they're at in terms of understanding what note investing is. You know, if I have to, I mean, well, I was going to say, if I have to start at zero with everybody, it's probably more limited in terms of, you know, what I could possibly do. But if they're almost there, they kind of get a lot of the gist. Like, for instance, like I know some people who do tax lien investing, and the jump from tax lien investing to note investing is not all that deep. So that would be really easy to try to kind of convey to them, oh, okay, this is how you do that. But if I have to kind of start from zero and try to, you know, bring them along, this probably more of a limited number, and I'll probably at this point just say 10, just because of my experience with monthly bunches of notes.
Now, do you have to like real estate to get into note investing?
Wow. Let's see. I think one needs to have some level of interest in real estate, because it's real estate investing without really dealing with real estate. So you don't necessarily have to get into the weeds in terms of the same things that a real estate agent would get into. However, you are drawing upon some of the concerns and that an agent would have when you're dealing with a particular asset. So I would say you might not have to love it in the same way, like you don't have to be like a home designer and get into it like that. But I think that you do need to have some level of interest in real estate in order to become a decent note investor.
So it's one of those industries where many people can be seen as not so trustworthy, and things can go left, right? Based on level of honesty and disclosures and things of that nature. If you're not someone that's very familiar with it to that degree, is it more risky for you?
So I would say that it's more risky for people who are, I think the most risky type of scenario would be someone who doesn't really get or like real estate, and then they try to tackle it themselves without any kind of formal help. So I would say for anyone who is considering getting into mortgage note investing, I would say that I tell this to everybody who I come across. If you're not going to learn from me, you need to learn from somebody. And the reason that it's better to learn from a person like myself versus, I mean, yeah, you can go and get online and you might be able to find some information about it. You might be able to read a few books about it. But one of the advantages of getting that personal connection with somebody, whether it be a mentor or an actual person who educates within the space, is that ultimately, when it's time for you to go out on your own and purchase a note and then execute an exit strategy, if that happens, you're going to need somebody who's done that before. There's only so much theory that you can kind of translate into actual practical experience, by looking at a book or looking at a blog or whatever. But I think that whatever a person does, they need to get that one-on-one connection with someone who's actually doing this.
Yeah, I listened in on one of your calls, and when they were running down some of the list of things that people need to be aware of and be cognizant of and check on this and check on, I was like, oh my God, I will lose all my money. But I heard that you were having something this summer that could help individuals decide if it's for them, how to get going. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it's called Mortgage Note Summer School. It's a 2-day interactive workshop that we're having online, of course. It was originally slated to be at a hotel, but the Rona happened, so it's going to be online on Zoom, of course. So it's going to be an A to Z in terms of note investing education. So I'm putting this on along with a woman named Sabrina Allen. She's a note industry veteran. She's been in the note industry for the last 20 plus years. And of course, some of that time, she's actually her own active note investor on the side. And then we are having 3 other speakers to talk about different aspects of building your note investing business, funding. That's from Belinda Savage. She runs a self-directed IRA company called let's see, M2 Services. And so she's going to come at it from okay, this is how you fund your note investing. Then we're going to have Sherry Hill. She's an expert in asset protection, because once you become a note investor, you don't do that in your own name. Okay, you do that. You have to either carry your assets in an INC or LLC or some other variation of those. So, and then Susie Berg, she's a lawyer out of San Francisco, and she's also going to, talk to us from as a note investor. So, so yeah, we have these 4 people and myself going to give a complete. If you are just starting from scratch and you just want to know, okay, what is a note? What is note investing? And how do I get this going? That's the whole purpose of it. It's just to try to give you that A to Z knowledge to try to get you started. Now, I will say this, just because you take this course, it's not going to mean like, oh, okay, now I can, now I'm an expert. No, you learn by doing. I took a similar class some years ago, and I got half of so that's probably half of the education that you'll get. The other half is actually working through an actual asset and going through that experience. So that's what I would say. You're going to get half of the overall education that you're going to need. And then after that, then you will have access to myself or Sabrina or any of the other ladies that are going to be speaking to kind of help you along with certain issues that might occur during a note investment.
Hey, I know plenty of entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs that have never, let's say, had an LLC. So some of what you're doing is beyond what some aspiring entrepreneurs might actually be at, right?
Well, I mean, it just depends. I'm sorry, it just depends on the business. Like if I'm just saying, like if you're going to be a note investor, you have to kind of think of yourself as being a bank.
Okay.
So I don't know of any banks that are in, a person's name. You know what I mean? Just a sole prop. So you gotta be an entity. I mean, if nothing else, protection. Do you want something to go south on you and then they come after your personal assets? Not me. I ain't the one.
So all of these things, I'm guessing you can help people understand and learn and get to that point to where they're comfortable eventually going out on their own. Hey, answer me this question really quick. With Corona, would you say that this is a good time for people to get into note investing, or is it a little riskier now than before? Talk me through that.
Good question. So I believe that this is as good a time as any to get the knowledge of note investing, because at the end of the day, I mean, regardless of whether you buy an asset, tomorrow or 6 months from now, you need to build up that knowledge right now.
Okay.
Now, some people like to make these parallels to 2008, 2009, in the aftermath of the crisis. And Well, I mean, that's when those people bought those assets at that particular time, those are the ones who made the most money. So you make your money in times of crisis, because I think I was thinking of some adage that some people have said over the years about something along those lines. But still, that's when you make your most money. When people are nervous and they're scared, that's when you pick up those assets for cheap.
Mhm.
And then when things get better, that's when you make your money.
All right, sounds good. Well, I want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity that's interested to get involved in Note Summer School. I think it's an amazing opportunity for individuals that are really trying to figure out what they want to invest in, what they want to get involved in. Maybe they like real estate, and knowing that there's so many different avenues that one can go. Note investing is new to me, but I have enjoyed learning so much of it from you, as I hope other people will have the opportunity to do, because it's so interesting, and you don't have to worry about the color of the carpet to get involved with it. So I think it's pretty huge. What else would you like for the people to know that you have coming up? Is the meetup group open? Like, tell us where we can find you and what you have coming up.
Okay, well, so as I mentioned before, I run the monthly brunches of notes. Well, it used to be a lunch and learn, but now it's more of a Zoom webinar format right now. So if for anybody who wants to sign up for that, they can go to my website, and I'm sure you'll go ahead and put the web address up later on. But I'll just spell it out right now. So my website is called Terreva Investments, Terreva. I got that, of course, from joining my two names together. And hyphen investments.com. There's a Inbound tab, services tab, Inbound tab. If you can navigate to it some kind of way. So that's the first thing. We're having an Inbound next Saturday, and I'm having a guest speaker, Zarina Harris. She's a friend of mine in the space, and her thing is seller financing. And what seller financing is that it's an alternative form of financing. So again, you will learn this at summer school, but so there's institutional financing, and that's what you get from your banks, your BofA, Wells Fargo, so on and so forth. And then there's private financing, and a way to do private financing is through seller financing. So let's say you have a house, you own a house, and you want to finance this. You want to sell your house. I'm sorry, let me start over again. You have a house, you want to sell this house, and you want to finance that sale to the buyer. Well, you can do that. So what you do is that instead of the bank, Wells, or whomever providing the financing for that particular sale, you are providing the sale. So, and what that allows you to do is you can have a wide range of possibilities in terms of how you go about financing that sale. It doesn't have to necessarily be an 80-20 type of thing that you would get from a bank. You can come up with anything you want to. So as long as both parties agree. So anyways, she's an advocate of seller financing. She believes seller financing is a good tool to use to reverse a lot of the historical wrongs in the housing industry over the years as it pertains to people that look like me and you. She's been on Capitol Hill to make sure that the politicians will try to protect it as much as possible, because there's a lot of ignorance when it comes to the concept of seller finance. So anyways, I'm going to have her on to kind of talk about a little bit of that next Saturday. So again, if for anyone who's interested in getting a taste of what my webinar is like, and what I'm like, it's a very informal webinar. It's not really like this really stuffy,
Engineer
whatever.
type of thing.
that is just not me. I'm not stuffy. So in fact, I wouldn't even wear this shirt today. I would probably just have on a t-shirt. That wouldn't probably go over well. But seriously though, I mean the webinar is a good time for anyone who wants to get that initial taste in note investing.
Can you make sure that I get that information also?
Yeah.
And the guest speaker, and we want to make sure we shout her out, and because it sounds like good information, and I always want to make sure that people have the opportunity to know what's coming up. If you miss it, you just miss it, but it's here for you, and we have great people like you putting these types of opportunities together. So just make sure that we get that information. Last question, do you miss Atlanta, and are you concerned about what's going on now?
Am I concerned about what's going on in LA? I mean, it was funny. Like I talked to my parents yesterday, and I was like, yeah, they were doing something down there downtown the other day. I think that was Friday night, but it wasn't that serious. It wasn't what was going on in Atlanta. But then yesterday happened, so I think it's about same. So it's going all over everywhere, and eventually it'll calm down. Especially if the powers that be make the right decisions. So, but yeah, in general, I'm not really that concerned.
Do you miss Atlanta?
Sometimes I do. I don't really necessarily. I don't think of myself as a Californian, even though I've been out here for 25 years, and even though that kind of exceeds that. Was that 7 years and you're considered a native? No. But the problem is that I've been away from Georgia so long that I'm kind of not really a Georgian either. So it's like I'm a person without a state.
Transplant.
But it's all good.
It is.
Still,
Well, thank you for
ride or die for my Atlanta sports teams though.
Yeah, all right. So I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us about your company, about your career, which is amazing, even though you might get bored with it sometimes and are trying to leave it. There are millions of people that aspire to be you and where you are. And I just love to have the opportunity for them to hear your story, what you're doing, and hopefully get involved with some of those amazing things. So I want to thank you again. Make sure I get that information. And let's keep in touch.
Okay. Well, thanks again, Tonya, for having me on.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.